is an icon. And this young man, and his brother, and his mom, and his dad, have taken Butler Performance to new heights. And things are getting ready to change in the automotive world. And when I asked David if he would come in and speak with us last year, I said, what would you talk about? And he said, oh, this world is changing. And he's going to talk to us about it. He's going to take questions. I'll be in the back with this microphone. If you have a question for David, when he gets to that point, raise your hand so you can get my attention. We love questions. He wants questions. But we want everybody to know the questions. So we're going to put it on the microphone where everybody can hear the question, and David will have a microphone. So with that, I'm going to give you David Butler.
Gary, thank you for the introduction, and he's right. I've grown up in these conventions and racing Pontiacs, and it is literally, you said it's been, somebody says it's been their life, it has literally been my life since I was a kid. So honored to be here, very thankful that they asked us to be here as a company. Asked me to speak. Never feel qualified. As far as speaking goes, my dad, Jim, he spoke at a lot of these. Loved to speak at these. He loved to interact, and I do too. He's just much better at it than me, I think. But he's just he's a good talker. You know, he loves to talk. So I hear stories every time we come to a show that about the hours that guys are still on the phone with my dad, and I listen to that and watch that all my life, and as I've gotten older, come to appreciate that so much. Just the community that the Pontiac hobby is, the friendships. Another thing that Dad has always said, still does, we talk about it now, that there's really nothing else like it. It's not just that we have Pontiacs and we like a certain car. It's these conventions that have built a community and of course a business for us, but it was just like all of you, it was a hobby. It always has been a hobby, still is, but it was Dad's hobby and mine and my brothers, and like I said, we've grown up in these, and the first events, Pontiac events we ever went to were GTOAA and POCI conventions. It's the first, as we were teenagers when we first traveled, and just fell in love with it. Dad already was, but I'll give you a little brief history of who we are, how we got started. We want to talk about, at that point, where performance, Pontiac Performance has been, where it's come from, where it is now, where we see it is. That's where I want feedback from you. We'll have discussion, question and answers. Where do we go from here? Where are we missing? Things we can do, things you'd like to see for your Pontiacs, and things you'd like to see as next generation of Pontiac owners come along, and we hope we spread that appreciation of Pontiacs, classics, the newer ones, you know, all that. So we'll talk some about that. But so Butler Performance, and definitely not to make this commercial, just a little history, and we'll move on to some kind of performance-related topics, and so we'll end up with a question and answer discussion session. So Dad, Jim Butler, had GTOs back in the 60s. Same story with a lot of you, and what you hear from others. He loved them. Couldn't afford the ones he wanted, usually, but fell in love with them. And in the early 80s, when we were young, he had been farming for years and got into the car business. And the first classic car, of course, the 65 GTO was his first GTO, and it's a Mayfair May 65. So that's my first experience. I remember when he got it together, It was a tri-power car, 4-speed, and the most vivid memory I have is my first real memory with a GTO. I was in the back seat, my brother was on the other side, and Dad was taking the car out for his first maiden voyage, test pass through the years. And I remember the tri-power open up. It kind of brings chills still to this day. That's a memory I'll never forget. Obviously stuck with me because we're still doing this and still love it. So, a lot of you have stories like that, and hopefully we can pass those things on to the next generation to keep this going, keep the appreciation going. Because I wouldn't take anything for those memories. So, as far as Pontiac Performance, kind of where it started with Dad, and as we said, a hobby, like a lot of businesses, we started working on our own engines, on cars that we could afford to pay someone else. As sometimes, like you still hear, it's hard to find somebody that knows a lot about Pontiacs. So that's how the business developed, and just working on our own stuff in the late 80s and mid to late 80s. Dad also owned the drag strip, took over a drag strip and started running the SOE. My brother and I both had race cars when we were 12, 14 years old. And again, couldn't afford to pay anybody. Nobody knew about Pontiacs, so on a local level. And so that's where he got started doing his own work. And he leaned on Nunzi and HO Racing and Warrior Racing. Those companies still got the old HO books, Pete McCarthy's book. Every desk in our shop has those books on them. We still use that stuff. I grew up flipping through those things, and those were just unbelievable resources. Those men that really made the way for Pontiac Performance. Those men are one of the reasons that there is so much available in Pontiacs today. Of course, Steve Ames on the restoration side, somebody I consider a mentor of mine, and just what a great man, great for the hobby, and it allows us to have what we have today. Nunzi, HO Racing out in California, Warrior, kind of in the Midwest, they all have their own specialties in Pontiac Performance. Nunzi was whether it was Ram Air 5 or in the hardcore racing stuff, the highest end of Pontiac Performance at the time. That's what we always thought of Nunzi, and it's, he's still out there doing it today. But HO was in performance, so a mail order business. They ventured into suspensions and a lot of things, and then Warrior Racing. He was a racer himself, but also he probably had the biggest catalog parts business of anyone. So Dad drew from those guys who kind of paved the way for the Pontiac Performance in the aftermarket. And I feel like somewhat developed our business around all three of them. Maybe he took traits from those guys, and that's kind of what we developed into, a little bit of all that. Some high-end racing stuff, of course. The biggest part of it is our parts and kit sales. And so leaning on what HO and Warrior did. So that kind of paved the way to, even for us and a lot of other companies out there, the few Pontiac specialty companies that have come along since. And so, so thankful for those guys, and still am. And it's just a huge amount of history. Pete McCarthy preserving so much history in his books. Of course, Jim Wangers, he was a close family friend. Sad to hear his passing, but again, just another icon. And the reason that Pontiac has the following it does, and so much of what we have available today, these guys have been working so hard for all these years, since the late 50s and 60s, Arnie Beswick, another dear friend, talked to him last week, and he's still out there going, still working on cars, still just constantly building something new. I love it. Just inspiration for us and our family and our business, and just blessed to have these guys. We all are in the community to have those guys that allow us to do what we're doing. Talking to some of the other, I have some Oldsmobile friends, big Oldsmobile guys, and they're just amazed that the parts availability we have, whether it's restoration but especially performance parts. It's insane. There, the beer guys, the Pontiacs are just far ahead, like in a completely different universe compared to what those guys have available. That's thanks to Nunzi and H.O., Warrior, Pete McCarthy, Arnie Beswick, Jim Wingers. Those guys allow us to do what we're all doing today. So just want to give a little credit to those guys and kind of tell you how our business started, and with Dad and kind of the progression of that. So in the mid 90s, we were reporting a ton of cast iron heads. Everybody that was in the performance world, that was huge. Pete McCarthy put videos out about it, and that's where our business started. I still remember Dad's ads and Hemmings in the late 80s. The deep board heads supported to flow better than stock ram air fours. That was a huge thing, and just dirty, hard, nasty work for cast iron heads. Anybody's done it or seen it done. I was doing that as a teenager, and we still do it today. We don't CNC cast iron heads. We still pour them by hand, but that was a huge thing. But Smitty at Eldrock, he passed away also recently. He was basically Vic Eldrock's right-hand man, and he told me a story back in the mid-90s, how the Eldrock heads, Pontiac Eldrock heads came about. Arnie Beswick had been to the shop and seen just lines of cast iron heads reported, and Pete McCarthy and Dave Bishop, and he had been to these different shops. Arnie knew all of us and knew the market and seen all these heads to the board. He personally talked to Vic, and between him and Pete McCarthy and Dad, and that's what led to the Eldrock heads, and that just opened up all the aftermarket world. When a company like Eldrock said, okay, there's enough market here, there's enough enthusiasm, enough customers to produce an aftermarket cylinder head, aftermarket intakes, that opened up the aftermarket and just really kicked it off. Of course, aftermarket blocks after that. Dad worked for the Eagle to bring the first aftermarket cranes, which were huge, because if you wanted to be Pontiac, you didn't have to find a 455 block. That was getting to be a real issue. We were trying to, find and build every 455 block in existence. And so, once we got to that point, the aftermarket started taking notice, and that it somewhat snowballed from there. It's really amazing, and we tell people this, that you can have every piece of a Pontiac engine, almost most Pontiac cars, you can buy new reproduction, good quality pieces, and you get multiple options. You got multiple companies to get it from, and that's a great thing. Competition makes things better, makes us all better. And so Pontiac Performance, it's amazing what we have so many years after they quit making our engines, our makeup engines, as far as traditional Pontiac engines go. So I just want to talk a little history about how we've seen it progress, how we've seen it grow, and what we have now started again with Nunzi in the 70s and Warrior and H.O. and Pete McCarthy preserving so much of the history, and Arnie Beswick always pushing, Jim Wingers. And like I said, we're just, as a community, as a hobby, the Pontiac world seems to be different. We deal with a lot of shops, and a lot of people out there, and you know, a lot of makes have clubs, and they're passionate about that. But just growing up in it, I can speak firsthand. It really is different. It's been a blessing to be part of for our family for sure. So. And where we want to go from here is kind of where we're at now, and then I want to open up and have a Q&A. Any questions, anything that you think of? You know, where do we go here from here? What are we missing in the performance world? And so be thinking about that. Dad always is so open, and it's what we love coming to these conventions. He spent tons of time here, but always on the phone. We didn't come up with what we sell, everything we sell. We didn't have all the ideas. It's feedback from you guys, from our customers. And so we're always looking for that. What can we do next? What's missing out there? What do you need? What do you hear your friends talking about? That what needs to happen next? Where do we go from here? So when we have a discussion in a few minutes, I'd love to have that kind of feedback. And also any technical questions, any questions that you have that are common questions. Something else we want to touch on. We answer so many of these questions by email and phone call and through our website on our tech pages, but we're always trying to build that. That's been invaluable for people that are getting into Pontiac hobby. And again, less and less, they can't find that local knowledge, especially Pontiacs, but honestly, whether it's even just a good local machine shop, it's a dying breed now. We hear it all over that they had somebody they dealt with, whether it's a speed shop or machine shop or a combination of both that were so popular for so many years. They're just not out there anymore. And that's another thing we're doing now is trying to put Pontiac guys that are wanting to get into the Pontiac market, or excuse me, the Pontiac hobby, and they just don't have anywhere to go. So we're actually building a list of guys, whether it's restorations, engine builders, machine shops, or guys that do it all. We can only build so many engines in-house, and there's just, so we want to grow the hobby. That's something Dad always focused on. He always focused on, and it still instills in me, you know, work with everybody there. As we grow the hobby, everybody benefits. And organically, we're going to benefit in business, but as we grow and get more people into it, the whole thing grows. These conventions grow, and that's what we want. It's what we do. It's what we love, and we want to see it keep growing. So that's something we'll touch on too. Is the fact that machine shops and speed shops have just been going away, and as guys age out, nobody's coming to replace them. It's a common thing all across the country. So something we're working on. Like I said, we're putting together I'm going to say a list or a group. We just started a few here, just as an example. We've got a list. We're reaching out to these guys. These are guys that we've worked with. These are just a few that we've started adding. This is something new for us. We probably have a list of 20 different builders, shops, things like that. I don't know if Bill Runker's here or not, but he does restoration, does engines, had NASCAR experience, super high level stuff. So many guys like that across the country, but they're hard to find and hard to get to. So we want to put that in one place so you can spread it around. So if somebody's wanting to build their first Pontiac or rebuild another one, they've lost the shop they've always dealt with. It's not that it has to come to us or Kaufman or the handful that are out there. That there's lots of quality guys out there. We want to help everybody find that, because again, it's just going to grow. It's going to grow the hobby, because we don't want to see guys giving up because you just can't get the work done anymore. So as we've kind of progressed, the hobby's progressed. When we first got started, we saw that there were restorations, numbers matching, original. Then there was race cars, and maybe some Pro Street, and hot rods. But we've seen it progress now, through the late 90s, early 2000s, the resto mods. You started seeing a switch from whether it was a restored car, concourse restoration even, but it may have a hydraulic roller cam in it, could have a stroker kit in it, things like that. We see a lot of that. Chris at CW Restorations, he does a lot of very, very nice restorations, and he's going to be on our list here. But it may be what we call a concourse quality restoration, but it's got a hydraulic roller cam because he doesn't want to worry about a flat tap cam wiping out if the car's been sitting over the winter or whatever. So we're seeing a progression of not just a stock restored car, not just your race stuff or just your hot rod stuff. The mixture's been good to see with, like I said, first resto lines, now full pro touring, where you're doing so many cars out there, you're going to see that, like your cars where you're doing EFI, you're doing overdrive transmissions. That's just a lot of standard stuff. A lot of guys are, and I'm sure you've done this too, if they do have the original numbers matching engine, they may store it or store the original pieces, but make these things drivable, user-friendly. So we've really seen that trend, especially the last 20 years, come to making these cars still look as they should, still have a classic look. Some look very original, but again, could have EFI, but so many overdrive transmissions. It just makes them so enjoyable. Full suspension kits on the cars, and still keep that look. And we're seeing that's been over the last years have been the most popular way. You can see a progression even through some of the cars that our older cars at the bottom of the page, where you can just see the progression through the years. Not just race stuff or not just restored stuff, but you get more to the newer stuff where it's full package, front to back, and that's what a lot of you guys have done with your cars, where you want the thing to handle, you want your air conditioning, especially weather like this, and I do. You want to run through, be able to run pump gas on this thing. You want to hit the key in it, get cranked up and go. So that's what we've been seeing in this trend. So we're trying to put those packages together, which front to back EFI systems. Nobody's done a lot of that with Pontiac until the last few years, where you can buy the whole kit from tank to, we call it EFI solutions. The solutions, because we might sell you the EFI kit or Summit or Jags or Holly or Fast. We do the rest of it. And it was just almost overwhelming for us guys that always had carburetors. And so now having the full solutions, and again, not commercial for us, there's other places that they can start to do this now too, but we want to make all this readily available for Pontiac, just like you can in a car. And I used to hear Dad say he hated to hear someone come up to one of the cars and say, "That's fast for a Pontiac." He couldn't stand that. He's just fast. That's what he wanted. That's what he wanted to show them. It's just and the same thing with what we can do with cars, whether it's EFI, make them drivable. And Pontiacs don't have to be not durable. They don't have to be finicky to drive. They don't have to be any of that. We can do anything that any other make of car can do. And that was always Dad's focus, and we're trying to carry that on even to another level today. So we're putting these, trying to bring things to market that you can use to make the cars more enjoyable. Again, look at the next generation of Pontiac owners, whether it's friends and people children. It's amazing how many second generation, even third generation now. Had a customer come by last week, and he's working with his grandson on their second build. Did the same thing with his children, and we love to see that. It's what we're doing. It's what we want to do with our kids too. So that's what Dad did with us, and we're losing that kind of thing in the country, widespread, not just in the car hobby, I think, but the car hobby, we still have that. We want to keep growing that, and that's what we're trying to make things readily available and have been for years, and we want to listen to you guys and know what are we missing? What do we need to do? What do we need to grow the hobby, specifically the performance end? Where can we go from here? We don't want to get stagnant, and we want to offer more and want to bring more and more into the hobby and grow it. Even the newer Pontiacs, we did a separate website for the LS stuff. It's for the 98 through to TAs and GTOs and G8s, and that's another thing. We get so many calls for that where either someone have a 65 GTO in the garage and they also have an 05 GTO, or maybe their son or daughter have a GTO, G8, you know, newer car, Trans Am. And so we wanted to try to offer some things for that too. Again, just the idea of growing, keeping this community together, keeping families in it together, which has always been such an amazing part of this and something dear to us because our family grew up in this, and me and my brother did, and we love it so much, and kind of pass it on to our daughters. So that's like I said, just want to run through kind of where I've seen it come from, where we're at, and now the thing is, you know, where do we want to go from here, and what are we missing? You know, what's the next step? What are things we can do to support you guys, things you're looking for, things you want to see, and brought to market. Even with events, there's things we can help sponsor parts of events that you would enjoy doing, that you got your car set up for. You know, we're really looking for that kind of thing. We want to just grow this all together, like I say, grow the community. So that's where we're doing a lot of two things to try to help people get into this. And I said, we stay on the phone, we stay on emails as much as we possibly can, but there's obviously there's limits. So we do a couple of things to try to get more information out there. We're constantly adding to our tech pages, and we always want to offer any information we can to help anybody. And that's what we have a discussion, question, answer. I'll listen to what questions you have. And we want to add more to this constantly. You can always reach out to us, call us, email us, problems you hear about, probably just can't get answered. That's the kind of thing we want to address, and we want to really add to that part of our business, is not just the sales side, but the technical end of it. Just that anybody can jump on our site, our YouTube channel, and help if they're looking at a Pontiac, if they just have a Pontiac, they want to upgrade the performance. We want to have all the resources we possibly can, and love the feedback from you guys. The resources we can add, then we want to do that. So much out there, and I hate to hear this. We get guys discouraged, and it's happened over the years where they can't get help. Nobody in their local area knows much about Pontiacs, and they'll end up just giving up on it. Put another engine in there, you know, the old things, you know, they drop a small wash check, you know, for so many, now it's LS, everybody drops in that LS. And again, we offer some LS parts, but just to be clear, we're always we want to keep a traditional Pontiac with a traditional Pontiac engine. That's always our first option. Now, another thing Dad always said when somebody would say, well, somebody told me I should do this in my car, he would always ask, who's paying for that, by the way? Because that's really what matters. So again, we're here to help, and I'm not saying that I don't LS swap anything, but we love the traditional Pontiacs in the traditional Pontiacs, and we also want to help with the LS stuff and the newer cars. But like I said, we just always open for feedback, and today I just want to spend some time rehashing a little history, what I've seen growing up in this, and so many of you have been here through all that yourself, and many of you longer than I have. Kind of where we're at now, performance-wise and aftermarket. We're light years ahead where we used to be, but we don't really stagnate. We want to add things that you see a need for. And right now, I do truly feel that you can do anything with a Pontiac that you can do with any make of engine out there. We don't think you need to look for any other make of engine to do anything you want to do. We truly believe that was Dad's philosophy, his goal for years, and I really believe that's the case. Again, with the aftermarket blocks and multiple heads out there, it's amazing how many different Pontiac cylinder heads are available in the aftermarket now. And it's not that one's better than the other, or this one's good and this one's not. It's just the fact that we have those options. There are people that are stepping up, putting investment into it, building those things. And the automotive aftermarket sees enough value to keep supporting it. After all these years, the blocks and engines haven't been made. So we're really, really thankful for that. Jump back to that cars page. Kind of going along with what we said about, we don't feel like the old thing we used to hear where you get rid of your Pontiac, put something else. It's easier, it's cheaper. That's another thing that we all know. If we get parts or something, it costs money, no matter what, whether you're building any brand of engine. So Brad Sadler's car, he's a customer there. That's kind of what we say the pinnacle of a higher end. We have a street legal car. He's Street Rod Machine of the Year. He won Barrett Jackson Cup, I believe. And the reason this car gets so much attention, it's still Pontiac power. And that's the number one thing he hears when he goes to shows. This car has been 200 miles an hour, a standard mile. He also drives around the street, believe it or not. So that kind of shows you right there. That's a traditional Pontiac base engine. It's aluminum, all Pontiac block. It's L-Rock heads. Otherwise, other than the induction, just a lot of off-the-shelf stuff. And so, again, you can see L-Rock heads, and so that's what we're probably most proud of over the years, is to get to that point of what I said before, whether you look at Mike Cooper's Promod or Big Chief, those kind of guys on the racing end, or this on a level of kind of the ultimate, brochure type car. Everything's available now. There's no reason to look anywhere else. And I'm talking about a company, I'm talking about with Pontiac engines. And we're going to keep going with that. That's where we want it to go from here. And we're proud to see where it's come from, and so thankful to the guys that have worked all these years to get us here. And just walking through the parking lot and seeing so many cars, a lot of you guys have cars out there. It's amazing what you guys have built and what's out there, the quality, the level of that, and some of you guys drive them and actually use them and enjoy them. That's really cool. See, nothing wrong with some of these cars that are just immaculate show cars. They're amazing. But our business is really has been focused on the cars that you're gonna drive and use. Even some of these cars, like yours, they're immaculate, but you drive them, you enjoy them, you use them, and that's what we like to see. So kind of wrapping this up as far as the performance end of it, where it's been, and where we are, and where we'd like to go. I'd like to open it up, have some discussion, if anybody would like to, some questions, things like that. Questions for us, maybe, that had trouble getting answered, and we want to take some feedback from here. We want to offer more if there's something else there's a need. In a business, it is still a business, and we get wrapped up with doing what we do. We don't ever want to miss the fact that we need to keep moving forward. And that's what's great about these conventions, getting together, and you guys can give us some feedback. So, yeah, if there's any questions, I'd probably like to, at this point, we'll open up the floor. And, questions, just tech questions for that matter, glad to, but just anything you're curious about as far as the Pontiac performance, let me know. I'd love to hear about it.
David, got one right here.
Okay.
What's the quickest normally aspirated traditional Pontiac V8 today, and what kind of vehicle and what does it weigh?
So as far as like what we call a door slammer, a door car, I believe Mark Hoffman's still got that. So he's done that with one of the stall billet. He's went about 702, something like that, naturally aspirated. It's a ex-pro stock car, I think an ex-Jags or something car, you know. But that's again, absolutely amazing. So there's that, just to be able to do that again. I don't care if you're building a Chevy or a Ford. That's a serious engine to do that and do it consistently. So that's amazing. As far as the most in a horsepower, there's a lot of things being built right now. There's some big Ram Air 5 stuff. A couple of guys working on some of the ProPort Victor ASL rock. Of course, Kaufman's, whether it's their Canada Valve stuff. We've got some Canada Valve Visner stuff in the shop. It's a good, even you asking that question's got me, I guess I had to stop and realize how much high-end new stuff is still coming out right now. It's actually pretty amazing when you stop and think about it. I mean, I just think of a few. And again, to be an engine mate that's supposedly outdated and done, you know, in 1979, it's pretty amazing what's happening right now. Still.
Yes, sir. David, while I work my way up here, real quick, comment about fuel injection. I've had a wild idea to put fuel injection on my Grand Prix.
Okay.
And let me hear your thoughts as soon as we get this question.
Okay.
I have a GTO 68 with a 400 block, and I stroked it. What is more durable, the 455 without stroking it, or stroking the 400, large versus small journals?
Another question we get every week, sometimes every day. That's a good question. We've tried to simplify this on blocks. As far as durability goes, if you're not trying to set an innate horsepower record or a nitrous horsepower record or boost it up to a certain point, say up to 700 or 800 horsepower, we don't care what block we start with, other than a 557 400. I'm sure most of you are aware, you know, your late, I hate to call them just the late model 400s, because some of the late model 400s were also Dickman with the 557 casting 400 blocks. As far as the 455, 428, 400, 389, 421, you hear a lot about main size, and maybe that's part of what you're thinking there. My last traditional Pontiac block, it was my top sportsman car, like 760s with it. It was a 76 model 455 block. I ran it, I rather raced it on nitrous, and never had an issue with it. I sold it, it kept running after that. And that's just one example, but Roddy's in his GTO before we went aftermarket block in it too, 455. It was a later model. We like those, they weren't drilled for 4-bolt already. So between the 400 and 455, unless you're going to try to turn 8,000 RPM in some specific application, even the bearing speed on the larger main and the block thickness just hasn't made a difference. Now, if you are doing that, and you are going all out, but want to keep a stock block and not go to aftermarket, then yeah, the 3-inch main, both the bearing speed and just more material on the block, that would be the way to go. But pretty limited application where it really makes a difference in what we've done. But there's been lots of said about it, lots written about it, real world. It's the few percent up there you really went all out where you see a difference in our experience.
Thank you.
David got a question right here.
I've got a 428 HO 4-speed. I just had the engine rebuilt. And after 1,500 miles, the main bearings started leaking. And want to know if the guy that did it for me did something wrong, or is that pretty natural? Because I've had that problem with that car ever since I've had it.
The rear main seal
Yes,
was leaking
yes.
on the 428. What seal's in it?
Pardon?
What rear seal was used in it? Do you know?
I can't tell you that.
Okay. Another daily question, even from shops, professional experience shops. So, yeah, Pontiacs have always had, they're not been the easiest thing to seal in the rear seal area or rear oil pan area, either one. Sometimes you know which one it is. So, when I was building engines, even my race stuff, my Rodney's, back in the 90s, we put rope seals in everything. There was no rubber seals. Other than the 455, we used the old Cadillac seal, maybe a 464. It's been a while. But anyway, there was a rubber single lip seal. Didn't fit really tight in the groove, but on the 455, we did have that option. But typically, we use rope seals forever. Well, we started seeing problems with that. They changed, like most things. Rope seals today aren't the same rope seals that were made then. So the material's different. Possibly asbestos, I think, with one of the things that maybe they pulled out of it, some other things. But so yes, to answer your question, if you use a new rope seal, whether it's Velcro or wherever, they just leak. I don't know honestly how any gas company still sells them, because they all seem to leak. And so what he's got on the screen are the new BOP, and I say new, they've been around for many, many years now, rubber seals. So we can talk more about that. If you want to, we can even show you one. But it really, the first question is what seal's in it. That before I went further to try to diagnose, I need to know what you're working with. If it's a rope seal, I'm just going to probably chalk it up to they're just not any good anymore, in our experience.
Then my follow-up question is, I've heard so many opinions that actually what kind of oil I should use in that engine. And I've heard so many answers, I sometimes don't know what to do.
Yeah. We've been through that too. So we typically, for years, we were Valvoline guys. We just used Valvoline. And Gary, I think we had a question right here. Did you have a question as well? Just a second. But just to address the oil, same thing. That's all changed over the years. That's why, years ago, we started seeing so much trouble with flat tapping cams and lifters. The oil was completely changed by the EPA and other things over the years. So that's changed. We specifically now it went to it used to be Joe Gibbs. It's called Driven. And so we use the Driven oil. They've got what's called a hot rod oil. It's for cars. It has properties for anti-moisture, for cars to sit, things like that. But it's got all the additives and everything built in to the oil. Then there's other brands out there. That's just what we spend a lot of time with. Lake Speed Jr. was a big part of that company. Spent a lot of time, from NASCAR, and they did a lot of testing. So we use a specific break-in oil when the engine's new, and then we switch over to what we call their run oil, just traditional like hot rod oil. And so you can look that up. There's other brands, but it's really about anything off the shelf, especially if it's a flat tappet engine. It's just not going to be high detergent. It's not going to have the additives you need. What we also learned, we put additive in, zinc additive. Everybody's heard of that for years, but that depends on the base oil you're using if it even mixes correctly. And so we went to a specific oil now instead of just buying Valvoline that we used for so many years. We just went to a specific oil that has all the additives in it. The Driven oil, which used to be Joe Gibbs, he developed it. That's what we landed on.
This is kind of an odd question, maybe even a loaded one, but we know that you do some spectacular stuff with aftermarket gear. But if someone were to drop on your loading dock a complete Ram Air 2 engine, so put this together, make it bone stock, make it right, do you do that work? And if so, what would something like that cost to do that, assuming all the pieces are there?
Another very common question. When you say bone stock, we will not build an engine with any stock internals. They're a 50-year-old cast rod, any of those pieces. So internally, we're going to replace everything if we're going to take the job in. That's just our preference to stand behind it. Even if it's a show car or whatever, we build stuff we expect you to use and be on it, and we want it to be there. We want to be able to stand behind it, of course. So, if you say you want it completely stock appearing, that's something we've done a lot of over the years. And but there's one caveat there. We mentioned, the oils and flat tappet cannons and things. We will not build an engine with a flat tappet cannon. We haven't done that for years. So everything that we build would have a hydraulic roller cannon in it. A total build, we do, which you can see some stock appearing, scroll at the top there, like that tri-power engine. Now, that may not be a chalk mark type restoration engine, but very, very close. We've done a lot of those. You can see it's got an aftermarket fuel pump on it, but we do a lot of that. But as far as restoration, honestly, I defer to somebody Bill Brunker, Scott Teeman, those guys. If they're wanting just for a concourse type restoration, it's just something that we've stayed away from. Again, there's some Super Duty. We did a Super Duty 455 Trans Am. It'll look stock appearing. It gets out those donuts and thing, but it's a high-end restoration. But all modified internals, all forged rods, forged pistons, stuff like that. So those engines, we do them in kit form a lot for that reason. Where say we'll do the internals with the machining, but on the outside to make them look exactly stock, it'll go to like a Bill Brunker. We've worked with Scott Teeman a lot, where he'll do the finish work. He'll assemble the engine, do the paint, make it completely stock appearing. So we work with a lot of other shops. It's something we don't specialize in.
Any other questions? Should have stayed where I was.
Looking for you. Hey, how are you?
Good.
Back in about 2010, I bought a 72 Formula 400, original, all numbers, matching and whatnot. Probably, a common customer of yours. I wanted to look all original, but yet have the internals all high performance. So I bought a rotating assembly from you, this little stroker, and I can tell you when you look at the motor, it looks all original. You would think nothing's ever been done to it. So I went with a small hydraulic roller cam. And my question is, now it's already 2023, I still have the car 13 years later. Have you done any longevity testing or anything on how long you can expect? I think that's the ComCam roller lift, hydraulic roller lifter. So this is a smaller 230, 236, 650. You can tell there's a little bit of a cam there, but I have AC and aligned well with the AC on. And the car performs great. Had the iron head supported. It's about 270 and 220 inches, about as high as you safely board them without risking anything. And car runs great. So have a quadra stock intake. So it looks all stuff. But I just want to. You're saying that you're only building hydraulic roller. So can someone expect 60? If you're driving, I drive this almost every day, and can you get 60, 80, 100,000 miles using this kind of aftermarket setup as compared to a regular flat top?
Yeah, and it's kind of, it went the other way. Flat tappets, like you said, we just don't. That's one thing that we sell. Pull up the lifter page, that tech page on the lifter page. We don't have to sell things with disclaimers. But if you go to our hydraulic flat tappet page, there's a disclaimer that it's only manufacturer warranty. We like to stand behind everything we sell. We deal with us, we're gonna replace it. If you buy flat tack or camera lifters, you've gotta deal with comp counts on the warranty. So what I say that to say, because where the cam cores are made now, and the lifter bodies are produced, the material's not the same. Also, you mentioned the oils. The oils are critical when they live or not. So that's why we switched over to hydraulic rollers. So I think we're seeing better life now out of hydraulic rollers, especially cars we occasionally use, they may sit for a while, things like that. So yes, to answer your question, we've had some guys send engines back to freshen them up that have had, one customer had 90,000 miles on his. Now, we can never say how long something, obviously how it's used and, you know, its RPM. Hydraulic roller lifters in general have been it's been tough in the aftermarket for the last several years. Huge amount of, if you just Google hydraulic roller lifters, you know, aftermarket, you could be there for days of different issues and things like that. So, but again, also, even a hydraulic roller, it depends on the oils you use from breaking on and all of the setup, getting it right. We haven't had engines we built, very little issue with lifters. We had some that have either stuck or been bad or had on absolutely, but not a lot. When we know we control everything else, everything around it's correct, we've had great durability. You mentioned Pontiacs. We kind of got away from them just because they had some consistency problems. Because like most companies, they outsource their lifters.
Right, that's true.
Well, they brought the process back in-house now. They've actually got a patented design that they're using it's a lash adjuster, you know, for like an overhead count situation. So it's something that's been, you know, as big as a mouth there. And so it's a cartridge style. So it took the big plunger out of a lifter that's been around since there's been hydraulic lifters. The plunger's now just an actual lash adjuster, a very small, compact piece. And so the precision is much more. And so they kind of condensed all the mechanism basically. And so if you freshen the engine up, or if you did have a problem, or if you wanted to, I would upgrade you to the new Comp Evolution lifter. Right. Just, I don't know if that answers your question.
I mean, I probably bought them in 2009, so, and by the time the engine was done, it was 2010.
Yeah.
So we're talking about these, but I don't drive, I mean, I don't know if I can put the 20,000 miles on it in all that time, because I've had other, you know, GTO also. So, and I'm a regular daily driver, so I've had a, you know, I don't just drive that car, but lately I have been. But I mean, so far so good.
Well, you know the old phrase, if it ain't broke,
Yeah, ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, right. So,
but Tomcats was good for a while back in, you know, 2005 to maybe 10, 12, 15.
Oh, yeah.
They were on a good roll there, and then all of a sudden, a lot of people had issues.
Right.
So I'm thinking that, they must have, when they farmed it outside, and that's probably when they had the problems.
They did, and we've been through the same thing with Morel. Johnson is a lift like Crower, for example. Crower doesn't make lifters, they rebox Johnson lifters. Howard's cams, they don't make lifters, they sell Morel lifters. Comp used to sell a Johnson lifter, and then they went to another company and had made it. They're controlling that in-house now, so yours, you know, they're good, they're working, they have any miles on it, you don't have a problem, don't mess with it. But now our go-to lifter is the new design comp lifter. So what I'm saying, I say that to say I would have, if everything's correct, I don't see why you couldn't put 50,000 miles on it. We had guys do it already. Yeah.
Any other questions?
With the COVID issues affecting supply chain, has that recovered yet so we can actually get components? And secondly, on top of that, what would be your typical lead time from start, from intake of the engine to completion?
Okay, we'll start with the supply chain issues, which have been, so I tell people, it doesn't matter if you're remodeling your house or building your engine or whatever you're doing, it's affected everything. The last big thing that was affected through that was camshaft doors. It was still on their heads, it would just move around, we were chasing. constantly. We've been able to work with Elder Rock, and so we have tons of cylinder heads in stock now. The last big thing has been cam cores, hydraulic roller cam cores. We just got several pallets of those in. So as of right now, our supplies the best it has been in the last 3 years. So that is, it's been a struggle, but the guys have done a good job just trying to find, so we would just, if we had to pay more for it, buy it from a warehouse and just had some stockpile, we were doing that just to fill orders and things like that. But we basically have just about, there's always going to be something out somewhere, but overall, the chemical was the last big shortage. It was a nationwide shortage. But we got those back in now. It looks like they keep coming in on a pretty regular basis. It was like we were stocked up. We even took another step. Like we were talking about, these companies don't make their cam cores, they don't make lifters. They buy cores from 1 or 2 core manufacturers who also deal with the OEM. So the OEM always gets precedent. That's why the aftermarket gets pushed back. We made a deal with them to buy our own cores. They store them there, and I'm not using my supply of cores. So if they run out again, I'll start using them. So we put a large investment in that. We've done the same thing with cylinder heads. We've done several different things like that, just to try to give us some cushion if this comes up again. But much better than it was. Typical lead time. Right now, we've changed up the way we're doing engines. It kind of the traditional way to do it. A lot of shops, maybe most shops still do it. Is you take more engines in, you just push your lead time out. We've been out 2 years before. You just, especially with supply issues, you can't hold prices. You can't. When you're out that far, you just don't really have accurate. So we just started booking engines up to a year at a time. We're booked up now, so we just won't take another deposit right now. But typically, the way we're doing it now, it's changed. Where it used to be 2 years. It doesn't take 2 years to build an engine. We had that many stacked up waiting. Now we just won't do that. We just cut deposits off and limit that. But that's where we're doing so many kits. We can, and we even help you find a builder if you don't have one. That way, we take care of the Pontiac specific stuff. So all the parts match. It's something we've already done. We've tested for years. So there's no guesswork for whoever does build it. We're setting clearances and everything. So that's why we've really been able to scale up the engine kit side of it, because we can only do so many engines. So we're doing a lot more of that.
Dave, we got time for one more.
Okay.
Back on the lifters, I had the same cam he had. I put it in back, 2013, just lost a roller last year and ate the cam. And you guys recommended Johnson to me. Is this top lifter brand new?
The
Since
comps
last year?
Over the last year, yes, they sure are. Johnson had been kind of the go-to. I went to a product summit at CompCams before they were merged with Elder Rock. Scooter put together some engine builders across. There were 10 of us there. It was John K.I.T.T. and Dorton from NASCAR and some guys like that. And the #1 subject was hydraulic roller lifters. So the owner of CompCams asked us to raise our hand, or give us the, I think the question was, how many of you guys use Johnson as your go-to lifter? 9 of the 10 of us raised our hand talking to them. And the other guy used something else. Nobody used Comp at the time, like I said, because they had some issues. But so had everybody at that point. It is a combination of things. But Johnson overall had probably been the most consistent. And so that was our go-to. Before that, it was Morel. We went 10 years using Morel lifters. Hardly ever any problems. So there's always things changing in the background, these manufacturers, I think, that, we can't always say it's just Johnson or it's just Comp. Now, the Comp lifter, like he said, we had years of those working so well. We had some time, there's some trouble. Now, they've got, I think, the best design. They're the only one with this patent design. So I think durability-wise, they may have the best lifter today. That being said, we've had Morel lifters and Johnson lifters running for 15 years with no issue. So I know it's kind of, there's just not straight, not I'm trying to be vague. I just can't take it, the stuff changed on the manufacturing side all the time.
The second question on roller rockers, does the roller rocker really add that much flow with the, making it have a higher lift?
So with the roller rocker, yeah, if you dyno it back to back, you get 10, 15, 20 horsepower on the application, that'd be on the top end probably. The thing is, especially with hydraulic rollers, a rocker with a rocker ball, even a roller tip, because of the extra spring pressure with a hydraulic roller, ramp speeds, you're gonna heat the rocker up. So it's really a durability deal, not a horsepower deal on the roller rocker with a hydraulic roller can.
My question is the shorter rocker versus the longer rocker.
The shorter rocker versus the longer
Are you
rocker.
talking ratio? Or are you
Yeah.
talking? Oh, ratio. I'm sorry. Yeah, I missed that completely. Same thing. Yeah, you're probably. Again, we've done this test on the dyno so many times. It's application specific, depending on the camp you got. But yeah, we'll see 15, 20. Probably most we've ever seen going from 1.5 to 1.65 to 25 horsepower, something like that. So there's other things to go along with that to make the choice more than the 15 or 20 horsepower stuff. But and you talked about your file test.
Yeah, you and I can talk
Oh, we'll
about
talk
that
about that.
anytime.
So yeah, but we touched on it earlier.
The other thing I was gonna say is, if anybody comes up with a question, David and his guys, we moved them out to the PV lot, popular vote. You can't miss his trailer. If you do, you don't have any business asking a question. So David and his guys will be out here through Saturday.
Yeah, we'll be here.
Yeah. So, drop by, they're always gonna talk tech, I'm gonna talk fuel injection with you. So,
I do that.
hey, if you got time to 2 or 3 minutes, we don't have anybody behind us, but maybe there's other people that have heard about fuel injection. I'm scared about going to it.
Yeah.
I've had a carburetor all my life on my cars, and I don't know what to do with fuel injection.
Well, we touched on it briefly when we were talking about kind of where the markets went. We sell more fuel injection systems now than we do carburetors. And like I said, I grew up with carburetors, scared me to death too. Because when we did it, we had to piece everything together. So we're literally selling more fuel injection kits than we do carburetors. The engines we built, we were doing more fuel injection on those. By customer request, not we were pushing that either way. And so, again, I'm not trying to make this an ad, but that's why we put together EFI solutions, because you can buy just the EFI system, and it really didn't help you. You didn't have everything else you needed. So we're doing full tank fuel system lines, bolt on, and then with all the new self-tuning systems, so you don't have to use a laptop to do that. Some basic handheld parameters put in a handheld. It really is that easy.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Give David Butler a big hand.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Really good job.